This video is going to focus on the levels of classification. Again, we're looking at the taxonomic structure that Carlos Linnaeus came up with. So levels of classification are similar. I'm going to use this state to house metaphor. Basically, we have a broad category that we start throwing things in. We can think of this as our state. We live in Pennsylvania, so that's the state of Pennsylvania. Moving in closer, you can say that we live in Allegheny County. We're getting more specific, but everybody in Allegheny County still lives in Pennsylvania. And we can get even more specific, saying that we're part of Pittsburgh. Inside that, you can even get down to your neighborhood. You guys vary in neighborhoods, but let's say you live in Brookline, then you can get down to the exact street that you live on, and then even your house number. So as you get further and further down these categories, you get more and more specific, but each subcategory belongs to the larger category. Again, you're all still in Pennsylvania. So organisms are going to be placed in large groups, and then they're going to get divided into more and more specific groups. These levels consist of your largest group or your broadest category, which is domain. Everything that is living fits in a domain. Other than that, we break it down even more and more specifically. Certain domains get broken into kingdoms. Kingdoms get broken into phylums. Phylums broken into classes into orders, orders into families. Finally get to the last two, which should be a little familiar by now, which is genus and species, because again, those are what we are basing our binomial nomenclature off of. So as you can see from the little graphic here, it does follow the American black bear. It fits in this domain here along with all these other organisms, even these little protists down here. All of them fit in the Eukarya domain, and more specifically, as it gets down, it does have a kingdom, a phylum, a class, an order, a family, a genus, and a species. Once it gets down to the species level, you are pretty much only talking about the American black bear. So we can actually give it its Latin name or its scientific name or its binomial nomenclature. But this black bear does exhibit all the characteristics in the other domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, and genus as well. So it encompasses all those categories, not just the species. And again, as you get further down, you just get more and more specific. It's just a way to organize and help scientists group things so we know which animals are similar and therefore, again, easier to study. You can use mnemonic devices because you will be required to know the order of this. So our sentence is, did King Philip come over for great spaghetti? You can make your own if you wanted, or you can use the one I provided. But if you're looking at it as a mnemonic device, each word is associated with a different classification level. So did goes with domain. They both start with D. King for kingdom. They both start with K. And P for Philip, P for phylum, and so on and so forth. Again, it's just a little device used to help you remember the order of our classification levels and to remember that domain is going to be the broadest and species the most specific. Next, we are going to be using taxonomic keys. You can find one on page 22 of your book if you want to look at it. They are useful tools for determining the identity of organisms. One that is not in your book is right here, and we'll just walk through you how to read one of these taxonomic keys. So here we have 4 unidentified organisms. They're all birds. This is bird W, bird X, Y, and Z. Basically, we don't know what kind of organisms these are. Maybe we just saw one day and we're like, okay, let's go figure out what that thing is called. We use these taxonomic keys, which are dichromanos, which means it's just broken into 2 different categories. Each step has 2 different paths you could take. You can either stay here or you can move on pretty much. So just reading through it, the first one says you either are going to have, again we're looking at all 4 of them, you're either going to have a beak that is relatively long and slender, wink wink, or you have a beak that's relatively short and heavy, which is this guy, and this guy. They all fit into that category. So if we do only have the relatively long and slender beak, we know that bird Y over here is this name. Certhi, it's Latin again. Number 2, Again, if it wasn't that one, it says to go to number 2, so let's go down here to number 2, and the bottom surface of the lower beak is flat and straight versus the bottom surface of the lower beak being curved. As you can see, this guy here is pretty flat and straight. This guy is curved. We're not counting this guy because we've already identified him, and this one here is also curved, so bird W has to be Geospasa. That leaves X and Y left, which means I can move on to step 3. The lower edge of the upper beak has a distinct bend. Lower edge is not kind of flat, lower edge, distinct bend right there. So there's bird Z, and then the last one is going to be bird X. Basically, it's just going to follow the rules, follow the paths, do what it says, and you will be able to identify your organism.